they will have much greater freedom and flexibility to respond to local priorities, not the priorities established by civil servants sitting in Whitehall or their ministers. That's the big change. And with that is going to come much greater flexibility around budgets, because at the moment local authorities have got very little flexibility around their budgets. And this is a big change, and you're piloting this in Leicester with the community budgets. And what I'm trying to signal is that is a big opportunity for the voluntary community sector, because you represent people, you support and mobilise people. As accountability shifts from Whitehall to community, local authorities should be much more responsive to community and to what communities want and what communities say are their priorities. That's the change. But that's why the voluntary community sector needs to find its voice, because there will be more arguments about what local priorities are, arguments that need to be won. And because the voluntary community sector has a particularly important role in championing people who often struggle to find a voice, you know, this is the time where you are particularly important. So local people decide eventually, but they're democratically elected representatives of the local authorities. But local authorities will be under much greater pressure, I think, to respond to community and to work in much better partnership. So I hope that's some answer to your question. I don't want to give you an impression that the state is going to completely disappear. It's not. Even with the reductions in public expenditure that are required and necessary, the state is going to play an enormously important role in all our lives. But we know, what I'm suggesting is there are going to be some areas, can't predict which ones they are, where the state is going to have to withdraw and retreat from some services. And I'm saying, you know, we face a choice. Do we just let that happen, or do we come together and say, well, actually, we valued that, that was important to us. Is there a way that we as a community coming together, working with partners, perhaps approaching local business to say, actually, can we replace that service in some way, and perhaps make it even better? And I think that's part of the challenge of the time. You mentioned the fund. This is a £100 million fund. It's a transition fund. It's will be open for business at the end of this month. £10 million available this year, £90 million next year. It's run by BIG, and I've urged them to make sure that it's speedy, responsive and unbureaucratic. They'll be doing regional consultation events, but it's available to try and help organisations that are very dependent on public sector income, feel particularly vulnerable to the risk of losing a contract or grants, and have a plan to try and get out of that situation, that position of dependency. And the money is available to try and help those type of organisations. Okay? So, gentlemen at the front, I mean, obviously the Department for Transport has a policy responsibility here, but if what you're suggesting, if I understood you correctly, was about new and innovative ways in which communities have responded to the loss of services and the opportunity to replace them with something different, then I'd be interested to know about that, because that's an example, if you like, of a civil society response, of a community response. And it may be that there are things that we can learn about, and certainly things that I can throw a spotlight on it, not least with the department, to say, look, you know, there's actually something really interesting going on in Leicestershire which you should be aware of, because there may be lessons to learn in other areas.
I'm sorry, the Minister has to go to an interview with BBC now, so of course we won't be able to take any more questions from the floor. Hopefully after the interview the Minister might still be around for a short while before his next appointment, so if you do have any questions, if you let one of our staff know, and we'll try and make sure you can raise those directly with the Minister before he leaves here. So on your behalf, can I thank Nick Hurd, as the Minister for Civil Society, for spending the time to come to this assembly. We didn't think it was going to happen, and so we're really pleased he actually did come to see what we're trying to do here in Leicester and Leicestershire to make sure the voluntary sector is recognised as an important part of the future for the communities here in the city and the county. So on all your behalf, I thank you, Minister.
And now it leads me over to say, ladies and gentlemen,